Another one of UV printers with manual table lifting is here in front of us, and we've already tried to start it up. It starts up okay, but when we try to print something out, this is what we get. So even the pump is having pressure, and it is sucking ink on the capping station, which is visible on the capping station. Still something is not, probably the head is let's say eaten with the ink, because it's been a while since we've done some repairs for this owner of this printer. So probably what we're gonna have to do is to change the head. But first, what we can do before we do any changes, major changes, we can try to pull the air out of the dampers and do a one more head clean, just to check if we're gonna get something better. But I don't think so, because it's been quite a while since this printer was last repaired or serviced, however you want to call it. And yeah, we should do the dampers first and see if it's gonna get better, but most likely it will need another head, a new one. So now we're gonna just do a quick check. Of the dampers, but our guess is that there's nothing wrong with that, but simply the UV ink is pretty aggressive ink, and depending on how often do you use the printer, the head has its lifespan, so to speak, and it can't last forever. There is some air here in the black damper, not too much, but still. So we didn't have in the CMYK test none of magenta, but there's almost nowhere in the dampers. There is something in this cyan. Okay, that's good. So sometimes what can happen is that if you don't pull the air out of the dampers properly, then you end up with damper working other way around. So instead of having the way of pumping down to the head, instead it works other way around. It prevents ink from coming to the damper. So if you don't do that right, you could be having problems there too, but I don't think this is the case over here. But it could be that the ink, since it's pretty aggressive, has melted something. But we're gonna see. There was a little bit of air in some dampers, but not too much really. So we're just gonna have one more check after this one head clean, and then we will have to and probably replace it with a new one. Then we're gonna do another test of CMYK, and I think that'll do the trick. The pump is doing good, as you can see. It is pumping, and even the ink is going through the head, because we can see that there is yellow, black, white, cyan. All of them are here, but for some reason it's not printing the way it should be. So could be also that other than the possibility that the nozzles are clogged, could be that simply the controller of the nozzles, that's the electronic of the head, could be that it's not working properly, or not turning off or firing the nozzles the way it's supposed to. So we're definitely gonna have to put a new head in. So now it's not printing anything, I think. So yeah, definitely something is wrong with the head. We don't even have to try to wash it off, because in previous videos, maybe if you've seen them, we had only one channel missing and so on, so we could be cleaning maybe that one. But if we don't have anything at all, or one channel or a few channels, it's really not worth it that you try to, it's not worth of cleaning and losing time on that, because we most likely won't be doing anything. That is worth of our time. So now when the print ends, we will gonna have to, there you can see, this is what we got this time, now that we've pull out the air and turn on one head clean, nothing. So probably there's something wrong with the electronics on the head itself. Okay, so yeah, in order to get to the head, we have to remove this stuff holding the pipes. So many times when people do the repairs themselves, they don't really take much, they don't pay attention or take much care about how the pipes will be unfolding, and they really should, because if they are scratching somewhere over here on the aluminum and other surfaces, they're slowly being wasted, and that's not good. You can have a leak somewhere, and You surely don't want that. And when you do have a leak, then you have to change the whole thing. The whole ciss has to be replaced, because it's not gonna be a proper job if you try to add just one tube. Alright, so I can put this somewhere aside for a moment. So you see, we've already done the aeration, although it's not really the 100% correct term for this, because the aeration is a bit more complicated process, but we like to call it that because it's close to what we are doing. So we've already done that, and you've already seen in a couple of movies how the head is pulled out, but maybe we should call this video head replacement. So as you can see, the cable is pretty good, pretty clean. That's how it should be. The head is even not that dirty from the looks of it, but if it's not working the way it's supposed to be, we have to replace it with another. Don't know if I did that right. Something is very... No, I think it's good. Right, plug in those two. Place it back. Okay, place back the screws. We've already said a couple of times you have to first go to the left and to the right, because you don't want to destroy the threads. That is not what we want, because we could be having problems later on. Alright, tighten up all of them to the end if they are not. Okay, we're gonna have to put back the let me just check the order, the dampers. Right. Yellow, black, the whites. Okay, let's see, so we're gonna have to add some duct tape over here, because it's not gonna hold just like that. And also that's probably what this tape was over here, just to hold the tubes a bit above this metal piece. Okay, so we need to plug in the UV lamp. This is the power supply for the UV lamp. Let me just okay, connect it back. And also we have to cover this open contacts over here. So we're gonna close this up because we don't want it to open, something like that. Okay, so now maybe I think we're gonna have to add some more over here, but we're gonna do that later. Now we want to do the important things. We don't want any fireworks to happen over here. So we're gonna close this up a bit like this. Okay, so now we can turn the printer on again and see, turn the head clean on and see if it's gonna print something out. I think this will do the trick, but still we need to be sure, because if it doesn't, then it could also be some other problems. But hopefully it's only a head. Alright, so it's gonna start the head clean by itself. So now what we have to see if there's gonna be any ink on the capping station. And there is. But we will try to print something out with just one head clean, but usually because this is a completely new head, so it's empty, doesn't have any inks inside, maybe it would be advisable to do two head cleans to do a proper job, but we just want to check if there's gonna be, we've had almost nothing printed out, if there's gonna be any change at all. So we can do one more later if we are missing something in the print. Okay, so this is a 1319 model, so we don't have to wait 2 minutes after head clean. We can print stuff right away. And that is if your computer doesn't go to the sleep mode, but we will wake him up. All right. Let's see what's gonna happen now. We can of course we do have to turn on the bedding, so you can see now the pump is pumping and the light is over here turned on. So now start the print. Still nothing. Maybe the head wasn't filled in the first attempt, so first head clean, so we're gonna have to do one more definitely. There was no change at all. Everything remained the same as before. So that's definitely not what we wanted to see, but let's give it another try. Because we are sure that the tubes are not clogged, the dampers are okay, they are filled, the head is completely new one, and the pump is sucking the ink. So we should be having at least something. So my guess is that the head was not filled the first time. Let's see now if it's gonna be a bit better. So as I've said, we usually do have to make more than one head clean. Nope. Still nothing. Still nothing. So as it turns out, it seems, or it's very likely that the problem is not in the head, but could be with the motherboard, and also could be with the cables. Why do I say that? Because we've had something print over here. This could be because of the, if the head, the old one, is standing for too long idle or didn't have a proper flow through the head, could be that it started to clog. But this is a completely new head and still nothing. So could be that the cables are not transferring the signal, or to fire up the nozzles, or the simply motherboard is not emitting the signal to fire the nozzle. So we should now search for the problem over there, but it turns out to be a bigger problem than we initially thought, and it's gonna require some disassembling, testing, replacement, and other stuff. So this could be a really video about repair instead of just head replacement. Okay, so now the tricky part comes. We wanted to save some time, not to disassemble everything, but we just connected another cable to check the state of the cable, or not really to check the state, but to check cable itself. We've connected it directly from the head to the motherboard, so we can see if that's gonna make any difference. But as you can see, I have to be very careful with this, because there's a lot of things that could go wrong if you try to do test this way, but it also saves a lot of time. So I've sent a document to the motherboard, so now we're gonna see if it's gonna have any change at all, because if it doesn't, then we know two ways this could go. It's either a problem with the motherboard sending the information on the to the head, or could be something with the pump, which I'm not so sure it is, because the pump does suck pretty good. So yeah, I don't see any improvements over here, so probably something is wrong then with the motherboard. And one thing we will have to be changing alongside with the motherboard is the power supply, because we currently have this bigger boards with different connection to the power supply. So if we wanna change that, we will have to change the power supply also, but it is what it is at the moment. So how it turned out is this is one of the nerve breakers. So we done a couple of combinations with different motherboards, cables, and so on. Still not much improvement, except now we do have some squares printed over here with another motherboard, and we got some crazy solutions over here. We've put bubble wrap beneath the power supply and the motherboard, which is a replacement motherboard. This is a bigger one, older model, so this is a kind of isolation, because we didn't remove the original one from beneath these two, the original power supply and motherboard, because we just want to have a quick test, because we've lost a lot of time here with this one and still not much improvement. So one more thing we do have to try, since we now got something printed out. So now that proves that we've got the signal on the head, on the nozzle, so the nozzles are firing. But probably the one thing that we still didn't try to change, because it seemed that is working good, is the pump. So we have a used pump over here in one of our UV printers, so we're gonna try to put that also here to this one, and to see if we're gonna finally get some ink firing out. We do have some black over here, some cyan, but no magenta, no yellow, and we can see that there is signal on the nozzle, but there isn't any ink. So one more thing that we do need to change is the pump. Alright, so we finally find out what's wrong with this printer after almost checking every single thing on the printer, because it was kinda printing kinda funky results. Either it would be printing 3 colors, or one would be missing, or it doesn't print anything, or prints just one color. And for the most time it printed only the best thing that it could print was only 3 colors, except magenta. Magenta was basically never there in the prints. And what's wrong with it is that it's not a problem with the printer or with the cables or anything like that. Even the pump has pretty good pressure still, although it is a used pump. Let's say, I don't know, maybe a little less than a year, but still has very good pressure. The problem is that the owner poured in some other ink than the ink that we usually do things with. He probably found something cheaper and poured it in, so it's much more, if you smell it, it has much more aggressive smell. Could be that is much more aggressive also on the plastics and on the head. So the old head that was inside before this one, we've just put a completely new one inside, has probably been eaten. So it's even though the pump did her job, still there was a very little ink going through the head, so probably got eaten with that ink. And especially magenta, we couldn't get magenta even on a completely new head over here, no matter what we do. So we simply poured out the ink that was inside. Other seems to be working, but magenta, not in 1,000 prints, won't go out through the head. And we knew that the head is not a problem, so we poured the ink magenta, the old magenta, out, and put back the inks that we are using. And one head clean was enough just to replace the old ink with the new one. So now you see we do have a clear CMYK test, and basically there was nothing much wrong with this printer. But what is different with this repair than with the others, regards to others, is that this kind of problem is very difficult to identify. Very difficult to identify, because you always you suppose that maybe the pump has lost the pressure or something like that before on there. It's not that unusual to change the flat cable also, but in this case, when you have ink that is either not for this kind of head, not for use for this kind of head, or either it's dehydrated, so most of the water has evaporized from the ink. So this kind of problem is very hard to identify. You basically have to change everything else, and you don't have to do it, but you don't know it until you change everything else. And then when you only are left with one option that maybe something is wrong with the ink, you change the ink, because it's not so usual problem. But we do have cases like this here and there, at least once or twice a year, and we don't like that kind of problem, but we need to fix it. But finally we got it done, and we are done with this repair, thank God.